What's up, guys? This is Church of Caboose, and for today's Destiny 2 video, we're going to be talking about powering up. Specifically, how to get your base gear, so like your gear levels, from being whatever you're starting out at this season or as you're watching the video, up to 1010 power. I'm not talking about your power score, including your artifact. I'm talking about the raw score that you have if you were to go into something where artifact is disabled, such as Trials of Osiris or Iron Banner. The idea for this video came from a clanmate. He and I have played together a couple of times, and I'm now on my wife's account. And so when we teamed up the other day, he is like, "Oh my gosh, Church, how did you get that account from something like 800 when we were playing the other day ago to your current base score of over 1,000? Like, what did you do? I don't understand powerful rewards. I don't understand pinnacle rewards. I don't know where any of that stuff is at. And I know other people who are in the same boat. Can you please help me?" And so I was like, sure. And so I took him through a bunch of stuff, and I was like, you know what, man, you gave me a great video idea. So this is the video, and that's why we're talking about powering up and gearing up. I'm going to tell you specifically what I do that has worked well for me in the past, and has worked really well with good old quarantine because I have more time to do all of the pinnacles. And the order of the video is going to go, we're going to talk about the difference between powerful and pinnacle rewards. We're going to talk about where everything is at in the directory screen, and then we're going to end with like what I myself do specifically and little tips and tricks that I use to maximize things like season passes. And then we're going to probably end the video with, I guess, some just final recommendations on powering up based off of fire team and skill capabilities. And before we get on into it, there's a look at the Titan on my wife's account. I want to thank her a lot for letting me play. She just asked that I do not touch her Warlock because her Warlock is her baby. She knows I love Titans, and so she said I could play around on her Titan, and that's what it looked. I started out with all blue armor, and it was pretty ridiculous. It took some. It was a little heartbreaking not having my baby Titan on my Church of Caboose account. Okay, so for pinnacle rewards, the difference really is how high of a level they drop and at what point you need what in order to level up. Once you have a base gear score of 1,000, you will only level up from pinnacle rewards. Powerful rewards will drop at your base power level, which in a way could level you up if you are lucky and RNG blesses you with an exact piece of weapon or gear slot that you're missing that is at your base power, and perhaps that specific gear was underpowered. So let me give you an example because I think I phrased that really weirdly. Say your overall base gear is 1008, but you've got 999 boots. A powerful reward would drop at 1008, and if you get lucky enough that powerful reward drops as your boots, then you would probably get a boost of your overall gear score to something like 1009. That's just kind of a hypothetical. I'm spitting out, making numbers off the top of my head. I just wanted to give you guys an example so you knew exactly what I was talking about. We will get to, not before too long, where these powerful and pinnacle rewards are at. We'll go step by step through the directory. But I just wanted to give you guys really the big difference between powerful and pinnacle rewards. Powerful rewards also tend to not drop as high as pinnacle rewards do. So say you're at 950 base power and you're doing both pinnacles and powerfuls, you would see more of a power increase on the gear above your base power score from pinnacle rewards than you would from powerful rewards. So those are really the two main things. One will help you level up once you're past 1,000. That's really the only option you have. And then powerful rewards are good for getting to 1,000, but they're not as high of rewarding power increases as pinnacle rewards. So now let's just take a look at the directory so you guys can see where everything is at, because that is in fact a question I have been asked in the past, is where do I find my pinnacles and my powerfuls? Alright, so here's just a look at the directory. You all should be able to see pretty much the same thing, other than one specific powerful reward will rotate depending upon the week. The rewards and where you will have them at are going to be noted by that little yellow sun looking thing to the right of each location. There are also rewards on the moon. I just wanted to point out I have not gotten through the Shadowkeep campaign yet on this account, on this character, but there are powerful rewards on the moon and also pinnacles. You have the raid, the dungeon, and then you've got the Master Nightmare Hunt on the moon, and then other pinnacles as well. Then you've got powerfuls you can get from the bunkers. Just you have to go and get the bounty, and then of course you've got the bunker upgrades that will drop you powerfuls when you open up those seraph chests, and so that's another source of powerfuls for you. Then this is the rotating weekly one. The Flashpoint, that changes planet each week. This week of April 14th, it is on the EDZ, and all you have to do is complete activities on the planet, such as heroic adventures, public events, including Seraph Towers if they're on the planet that has the EDZ, patrols, and other public events. Once you get the activities completed to 100%, you just go back to that planetary vendor, in this case Devrim, and you get a powerful reward. Then we've got Crucible, and you got 2 powerful rewards you can get from Crucible. One from 4 matches in like the quick play area, one from 4 matches in the comp survival kinds of an area. It's also worth noting, on Iron Banner weeks, such as this week, you get a ton of extra pinnacle and powerful rewards. If you do the quest, then you get like 4 or 5 like just weapons and then additional armor pieces that drop, as well as the 4 pinnacle rewards that happen from completing the bounties from Lord Saladin. Then we've also got rewards, powerful and pinnacle, from the Vanguard area of our directory. You got Vanguard Strikes. You just need to have on the same subclass as the burn type. So if the burn is Void, make sure your subclass is Void, and do 3 strikes, and you have a pinnacle reward. Then we have Nightfalls. Nightfalls get a little bit tricky, and we're going to take just a little bit of time to explain them. Each level of Nightfall has different levels of rewards, and if you, as you go from easiest to 750 to hardest at 1060, the modifiers and rewards increase until you get to Grandmaster, which is a whole other spiel. But anyways, so I personally would recommend farming out Legend and Master Nightmares or Nightfalls the most, just because you get things like exotic gear drops will happen. You have enhancement prisms and ascendant shards that can drop. The key to those, though, is you need to make sure you're killing all the champions throughout that whole strike. You also have a pinnacle of 100k Nightfall. That means you scored 100,000 points as a fire team by the time the timer stopped and you completed the Nightfall. That you scored 100,000 points, and you will get a pinnacle in addition to whatever could potentially drop from that specific Nightfall. So if you're in the Master, you could, in theory, get a reward for pinnacle, get an exotic, and get an ascendant shard and enhancement prisms. And remember, the best way to increase your odds on Legend and Master of getting those resources, especially if we're going to farm out those Nightfalls, is to kill all of the champions. And since I mentioned farming, we all need these resources, enhancement prisms and ascendant shards, to masterwork our favorite pieces of armor, and they are pretty expensive to buy from Banshee, and so it's a pretty good resource for upgrading and increasing your stat rolls to use the good old Master and Legend Nightfalls. And then there you have Gambits. You can do one or the other. You don't get 2 rewards from Gambits. Just do Gambits Prime or Gambits and you will get a powerful reward. Then we go on over to the tower, and you'll notice I have a powerful reward waiting from Lord Shaxx. That's because I completed 8 Crucible bounties this week, and so if I was to go talk to Lord Shaxx, he would give me a powerful reward. We also get clan rewards from Hawthorne. These are rewards that you get from people in your clan completing things like raids, Gambit, and Crucible together. You don't even necessarily have to be in their fire team. Just as long as someone in your clan does it, you will be able to get rewards, and you can also grab bounties that will give you powerful rewards when you do those things with your clanmates. Then finally, here's some proof from Savala that it is in fact 8 bounties, and when I complete those 8 bounties from Savala, I will be getting a powerful reward. I also want to point out a little trick, just because I'm not sure if everyone knows where this thing is at. You can use the menagerie to flesh out your character. What do I mean by that? Because I'm going to probably use the word flesh out quite a bit. Say, once again, you are 1008 base power, and your energy weapon is 999. Well, you can go select Menagerie, and then load up your chalice, slot in the appropriate runes to get an energy weapon. In this case on screen, it will be the runes needed for a beloved. And then you would have an energy weapon that drops at your base power, which would probably give you an overall increase. You get 3 powerful rewards per character each week on Menagerie, and Menagerie is also a great way to farm out specific weapons that you want to have. I'll try to have a link in the description box down below, so that way you guys can just kind of scroll through and see on that link and see what weapons you want, and you know exactly how to get them. And then the last thing that we'll talk about real briefly, because I'm going to spend more time on this in my tips and tricks part when I talk about what I do, is don't grab things from your season pass. Your season pass for both free to play and those who paid for the pass will have armor and weapons that you can grab as you progress through the different levels. If you save on to those armors and weapons, you can use them to flesh out your character as you progress throughout all the ranks, especially if you're not trying to do crazy war mind builds. This is an excellent way to, save onto gear to give yourself a boost. You don't have to necessarily worry about farming. Alright, so now let's talk about what does church do to power up, and that's it. What do I do? That's what we're going to talk about now. Alright, so let's look at what I do at the beginning of a season or a new content drop in order to power up as quickly and efficiently as possible. This strategy is something I've used for quite a while and has worked out pretty well, but this strategy can be a little bit confusing sounding just by words, so I do have this written out version right here. So the first week I get on my hunter, which is my least favorite character. I do all the powerfuls and then all the pinnacles I can if possible, while using Menagerie and Season Pass to supplement what makes the most sense. I usually don't touch the Season Pass though for quite a while, so I use Menagerie. Then I move those weapons to my second character, which happens for me to be my Warlock, do the same thing as my Hunter. Then I move those weapons over to my third character, and by then I definitely can do all the powerfuls and pinnacles, and I end that first week on my Titan. So I mentioned just real briefly talking about pinnacles if possible. A lot of the pinnacles, or at least a couple of them, have some power requirements. The 100k is probably the most severe. 100k Nightfall is a 3-man activity, and usually you have to be able to do the legend or master version of the Nightfall in order to get 100,000 points to get that pinnacle, which means you need to be able to move through a Nightfall where the enemies hit hard at a good speed, because it's a timed event and how long you take affects how many points you have. So the 100k Nightfall is not always necessarily the most doable on my first character. I also mentioned that using the Season Pass and Menagerie to supplement what I can, but I don't often use the Season Pass for the first week or so. That is because I try to reserve my Season Pass for when I am absolutely stuck. I'd hate to run out of rewards when I'm in the part of my, Destiny 2 career where I can level up from powerful rewards and not from pinnacles. Because if I wait to use those armor, then those weapon level ups from the Season Pass, they can drop in my base power when I'm in that pinnacle range. And so if I use them all, those rewards too early, then I don't have those rewards when I'm stuck in the pinnacles, and you have significantly less pinnacle rewards. So I would suggest hanging on to your Season Pass until you are in the pinnacle, time frame. The only reason I mentioned it with what I was talking about with the week 1 progression was because I do the same thing I do when new content drops when I have characters working on pinnacle rewards. I do the exact same thing, so I felt like it was worth mentioning in that little loadout, or little, text box that I put up there for all of you guys, that I make sure I evaluate what I'm doing and if I need to do a Menagerie or use the Season Pass. So hopefully this all makes sense. Let me know down below if that text box was useful. If not, you can always join my Church of Caboose server and ask more questions. If you play on Xbox, we can party up, and I'll do my best to make these things as clear as I possibly can. So now what do we do on week 2? For week 2, I do the exact same thing as week 1, only I'm in reverse. So you can see I left the numbers the same on this, text box for each character as I did on the first one. So my Titan was the character I ended with last week on week 1, so it's still number 3, and I start week 2 on my Titan, then I do my Warlock next, then I end on my Hunter. By this point of week 2, most of your characters should be high enough to do most of the pinnacles, especially since the new dungeon, the Pit of Heresy, the boss fight is around 970. Then you've got the Master Nightmare, which we're going to talk about in good detail, because you might be thinking to yourself, well, Church, if I'm not high enough to do 100k the first week, why would I do a Master Nightmare that first week as well? So the Master Nightmare is not actually timed. Yes, there's a time aspect to it, but that more applies to the triumphs and time trials, not so much for rewards. You are welcome to kill all the barriers, but you definitely don't have to. How I've used these Master Nightmare hunts is if it's on a week where there's a couple of easy bosses, the two that come to mind are Fogoth and Zygon, because they got areas where you can kind of chill and be out of the zone. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, make sure you guys look up videos on it, or if you want, I will make a video on it. Just let me know down below, and if there's enough, need for it or desire for it, I will make a video. But you can do those Master Nightmare hunts significantly underpowered because you can take as much time as you need. So that's a pretty simple pinnacle to do. It's just you guys are going to probably be dying a lot. I know I sure was when I was doing a 1030 Master Nightmare hunt and I was at 990 power, but it's definitely doable and something that you guys should consider in doing. So that kind of wraps up, I guess, the talks about how I handle all of my stuff. I just want to end it with, make sure you guys are snaking back and forth on your characters. Don't forget to be moving over your highest gear weapons. You don't have to have them equipped. You just need to have that highest gear weapon on your character. So if you got a weapon that's your highest power in your kinetic slot, but you absolutely hate, let's say, the bow from the raid. Let's say you did the raid and the bow is your highest power. You don't have to use it. Just have it on the next character and always have it on whatever character as long as it's the highest weapon, and the game will take into account your potential base score as if you had everything equipped. So hopefully that makes sense. So whatever the highest gear you possibly could be, based on what's in your inventory on your character that you are playing on, is what gear drops will be based off of. Hopefully that is not too hard to understand. So let's just wrap up a little bit with my tips and tricks, and thank you guys all so much for making it this far in the video. I know it's getting kind of long, so I'm going to try really hard to be quick and efficient with ending this video. Okay, so some final thoughts I'm going to leave you guys with and considerations, especially when you are trying to do pinnacles, is one thing you need to consider your time. One of the things like I do, for example, when I do the Garden of Salvation raid, is that I know there are certain raid challenges that are usually very time consuming and not very easy to do with random groups of people unless someone's got a well laid out strategy that they've already come up with. So then in that instance, it probably wouldn't be the best use of my time, especially if I'm frantically trying to power up for something like a World's First Raid attempt or Trials of Osiris where you need power quickly. I probably wouldn't worry about doing that challenge because I would spend more time trying to do the challenge and I would lose time I could have been spent getting other pinnacles, including that raid completion. I would also consider that you take into account your own abilities and experience when you're considering time. For example, say you have not yet completed Garden of Salvation. Speaking of which, if you need help, just join my Discord server. Say you haven't done Garden of Salvation yet. It may not be the best idea if you're in a power-hungry hunt trying to frantically level up to do a garden until you are more chill and you feel like you kind of are more where you want to be to do the activities you are wanting to do and do the things that were causing you to want to be at that higher power. Because learning Garden of Salvation, or really any raid in general, can take a few hours. And in a few hours, you could quite possibly have done almost all of your powerful rewards, or maybe you could have done all your remaining pinnacles. So make sure you guys are considering the time. Is it worth my time to do this particular thing? I know there are some people that will hate it when folks in raids are like, know what, this is a waste of time, and bounce out in the middle of a raid. But part of why they could be doing that I guess action would be because they're trying to evaluate, was such and such thing worth my time in the long run, or should I just bail and do something else or find a different group? So make sure you guys are appreciating your own time and mental health. I also want you guys to be thinking about when you should be using your season ranks. I would strongly advise you to consider waiting to use those season rank rewards until you get to that max powerful reward cap of the current season. It's 1,000 power, and to try and save those rewards to reduce your time of grinding, because you are limited in how many times you can run Menagerie. And then speaking of Menagerie, you also need to consider, is it worth the potential time it would take to complete a Menagerie with garbage random teammates, or should I just move on and switch to another character? There's a lot of considerations to make on time. I always try to evaluate, especially if I only got a couple of days, I also evaluate how many characters I think I should run. Let's just use this Season of the Worthy, for example. On Tuesday, the new season dropped. on that Friday, we had Trials of Osiris, and I wanted to be a part of it as soon as Trials was available. So I knew I probably wasn't going to be able to get through every single powerful and all of the pinnacles on 3 characters in 3 days. That just probably wasn't going to happen, but then COVID happened, so I did do it. So our original plan was to just do my 2 characters I thought I would use the most in Trials. So I was going to focus on getting everything done on my Hunter, and then doing everything on my Titan and leaving my Warlock alone. So is there something else you consider? And then finally, if you are in a really huge rush, and Pinnacles are a little bit challenging for you, because I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, you suck if you can't easily do 100k, or you're terrible if you can't just crank out a Garden of Salvation raid in less than 6 minutes, or 45 minutes, whatever. You can do this other alternative, which I think I've seen some other big YouTubers use. A lot of them seem to like the idea of doing all your powerfuls first, and then going back through and doing all your Pinnacles. So doing the same thing, I had that written in that graphic before, where I started off my Hunter, my least favorite, where I did powerfuls and Pinnacles as I could, and then I switched gear to my second character. Instead, they were doing just all powerfuls, switch gear to their second character. Do all powerfuls, switch gear to their third character. Do all Pinnacles, and then like work their way backwards, or like something of that nature, the same week of doing the Pinnacles. So that is an option, to do all your powerfuls, and then go back through and do all your Pinnacles that week if you're not sure how time will treat you, or if you just don't want to deal with feeling rushed with doing all your Pinnacles. I know it can be really stressful, feeling like you have to do 3 Gardens, 3 Master Nightmares, 300Ks, and all that good stuff in the same week. Alright, and the last thing I want to leave you guys with, because I don't recall if I specifically told you guys what all the Pinnacles are, is we're going to just real quick cover all of your Pinnacle options, including Iron Banner. We're just going to kind of rattle them off. We've got Garden of Salvation Raid. That gives you 4 Pinnacles. We've got the Pit of Heresy. That also gives you 3 or 4 Pinnacles. In the boss fight, that Pinnacle is a Masterworks piece of armor, guaranteed. You also have the Master Nightmare Hunt, which will give you a random piece of gear, but it'll be a Pinnacle reward. And that is basically all of the Pinnacles. But then when you have weeks such as this week, where you have Iron Banner, you get a ton more Pinnacles. You got 4 Pinnacles, one from each bounty you pick up from Lord Saladin. Then as you're progressing through that quest, so the first time you maybe do Iron Banner and you have that Cast of Iron quest, each step gives you powerful rewards. It's usually 1, sometimes 2 pieces of gear will drop, and so that kind of adds into that loophole of Iron Banner, giving you like an extra 10 to 12 pieces of powerful rewards / Pinnacles. And so Iron Banner weeks are a great week to try and farm out stuff, especially if you're more of a PvP person, or maybe you perhaps struggle with finding raid teams, which is the very last thing I want to mention. If you guys have a hard time finding raid teams, maybe it's because you don't have clears, or maybe it's just because you don't know people, you're welcome to join the Church and Friends Discord server, and I will try to help people get their first clear. Or if you're not on Xbox, you can always try to use it as another way of LFGing. We're a small server right now, but we will just only grow with time. So if you guys are struggling with finding fire teams, make sure you try to use that resource if your other ones aren't struggling. Otherwise, just put in some work, make sure you get the clears. The more clears you get, the easier time you have getting into raids. I know I kind of fall subject to the toxicity sometimes, where I just want to do a fast raid and I'll just post like 1 or 2 raids less than my clears. So like I have like 32 clears or something like that between my 2 accounts, and so like if I do a post, I'll be like, must have 30 clears, or please have 30 clears. So the more clears you get, the more experienced groups you'll get with, and the faster your raids will get. The first raid for most people is almost always the longest one, and then after that it's usually downhill and gets exponentially faster with time. Alright guys, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know down below. I'm really curious if these tips helped anyone out, if anyone just had their mind blown, or if folks were like, yeah, this is all really obvious stuff, Church, like why did you do that? You son of a gun. Just let me know down below. But anyways, I am Church of Caboose. Have a great week and happy grinding, y'all.